I'd like to call to order the Village of Westmont Planning and Zoning Commission for its regularly scheduled meeting on Wednesday, January 13th. Could we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Fidesco?
Here.
Commissioner Thomas?
Here.
Commissioner Van Buren is here. Commissioner Pill?
Here.
Commissioner Fleet? Commissioner Richard? And Commissioner Anton are absent. We have a quorum.
We just barely have a quorum. Very good, very good. If everyone would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before you're seated, anyone who plans on giving testimony either for or against anything tonight, I'd like to swear you in. If you'd please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I swear that the testimony I give will be the truth and the whole truth, so help me God.
I do.
Thank you. You can all be seated. I'd like everybody to please silence any cell phone devices or pagers that they have so they're not going off throughout the meeting. We'll follow the order on the agenda, and when you're up to the podium, I'd ask that you please sign in. I assume there's a sign-in sheet up there so that we can have your name and address for records if there's any contact needed at a later date. All right, our first order of business tonight will be, I will entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of the December 16th Planning and Zoning meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the approval of the minutes? None? May I have the roll call, please? Commissioner
Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Pill?
Yes. And that motion was by Commissioner Van Buren and seconded by Commissioner Thomas. All righty. New business. Planning and zoning item 10-001. William Gust of HB Securities regarding the property located at 233 West 63rd Street in Westmont for the following. A zoning code variance request to increase the maximum gross square footage of signage. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you tonight?
Fine, thank you. Shannon, you want me to start and go through it?
Please, if you could just introduce yourself and summarize your request.
Yeah, sure. I'm Bill Gust of HV Investments. We're building the project over at 233 West 63rd, a sports and retail complex. I was in front of you guys a few months ago over building the building, and now we're back and want to put a monument sign out front and a sign on the building, and then a series of signs on the retail spots. And when we did out the signs, I think it came to 20% more than what is allowed. So we are here to try and get a variance for that increased signage. And
Great.
do you want to, I don't know, they have the renderings, right? I can show them.
You could put that on there. That projector will turn on automatically and display it up on the screens.
That's fancy.
That'll take care of itself.
Oh, yep. Okay, well, that actually gives it to you there. So you can see, oh, thanks. This was the sign that we were going to put on there. It's the Westmont Yard logo with the sports complex, and that's to scale. And then you have the retail signs in the back. And then we also have, I guess, just to show the other part, that is just a rendering of what the monument sign might look like. And I think what's causing the variant, or the request for the variance, is a couple of things. One, this is a combined sports and retail. So you have the parking lot for both of these in the front. So the building's set back 230 feet. And then where you see the sign of the sports complex, that's actually behind the retail shop. So that's another 60 feet back. So it's 280 feet off of the road, which means you may need a bigger sign for people to see it. And then that's really why we're here.
Are there any other things that you'd like to share with us that address the variance request specifically?
No, I don't think so. No. I mean, I think Shannon laid it out in hers as to how much the variance was. And I think so mainly it was just the reason for it was the setback. And then also it's a little bit just to try and grab attention. It's still, I know you've zoned this C1, but this is sort of the first one going in there. So to try and grab the attention, you've got, a big water tower. You've got a bunch of school buses parked across the street. So we're just trying to get the attention.
Great, thank you. Does staff have anything they'd like to add to this?
I wanted to make one point of clarification that wasn't available at the time that the staff packets went out. The request for variance is to go from what code permits would be 786 square feet. This would be to 954.8 square feet approximately. There are a few unique characteristics which Mr. Gust has mentioned already. The setback from the 63rd Street right-of-way is one. He does have the anchor tenant in the sports complex that is actually seated behind the retail tenant. So in order to get some legibility from the right-of-way, he's asking for that increased area. That being said, there are 3 sign types. There's the main wall sign, which reads Westmont Yard Sports Complex. That in and of itself, the code would allow in a multi-tenant complex such as this, when there are 5 or more tenants, both ground signage and wall signage. The wall sign for the main tenant there would be permitted to be 213 square feet, and he's asking for about 446.3. The monument sign, he's permitted actually up to 423 square feet, and he has 88.5, so it's significantly less than what code would allow. And then the individual tenant signs, if we assume that they all had a width, each tenant space had a width of about 30 feet, not knowing who those tenants are right now and what their build-out needs will be, they would each get 30 square feet or 150 total square feet. Bill's asking for 84 square feet per tenant in order to help compensate a little bit for that setback. There are some opportunities to reduce or bring that number closer to the amount allowed by code. At this point, it seems as though the most logical would be a reduction in the main wall sign for the sports complex. But that all being said, again, there are some unique factors here.
Fred, any additional comments?
None for me at this time, sir.
Great. Okay. We'll open this up to the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this particular item, either for or against? Please step forward. We'll close the public hearing, and we'll start with commissioners. Commissioner Fidesco.
Okay, I'd like to ask staff a question before I get to the petitioner. Did you check out, or do you know the size of the sign at Westbrook Market?
I don't know offhand the area of that particular
Because I'm
sign.
thinking that it's approximately a couple of 100 feet off of 63rd Street. I do understand that it also is adjacent to Cass Avenue, but I don't believe that sign is quite that large, and it's fairly visible off of 63rd. Just a comment. I was hoping that maybe somebody had checked into that, since that's in the general vicinity. Anyways, I did exactly what Shannon had mentioned, that as far as possibly reducing the larger main sign. I just took a look at it and thought maybe, if there was any reduction, it could be reduced by just a slight bit. 10% on that sign would bring it down to just a total overage of 15.4%. In other words, a 6% overall reduction. And it really would still be just around 900 square feet, 907. I'm just wondering if you had done any numbers, and if you checked it out, because it would only reduce it by, approximately less than a foot as far as height. And I believe the length was reduced by, I don't have that one jotted down, but that wasn't that much either. It was only a couple of feet.
Right.
So, but it would still be very prominent.
Yep.
and it would get you a little bit closer. I'm just wondering if that was...
No, I think it's a fair comment. I think
Yeah,
it's
because when you look at it at scale, it's a fairly large sign. Yes, it is set back, but it's fairly obvious.
Yeah. Yep, that's true.
That's my only comment.
Commissioner Van Buren?
I think that the setback and also the orientation of the lot in comparison to 63rd Street warrants the signage that they're asking for, and I really don't have a problem with the request.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Thomas?
I like it the way it is. I like the look of the sign. The Westmont yard it's big, but you are set back, and it's a good looking. It has the word Westmont out there. I like that. I like that on the pedestal sign also. It's a good looking sign, and the fact that you are so far back, it's still not glaring. It fits, and I like it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What are the dimensions of the main wall sign?
It's, the sports complex is 5 feet by a little over 70 feet. I think 70 feet, 9
7
inches.
foot, 8 inches.
8 inches, thank you. And then the logo is a little bit bigger. It's 9 feet by, I believe, 18 feet, 8 inches.
And how is that sign lit?
Well, that's an excellent question. I don't want to say we have an answer on it because we're going back and forth on it. One is that we have 3 big lights that are going to flash up, not flash, but shine up onto the wall, and it could just be externally illuminated like that. Or we could just make them channel lit letters like you see everywhere, or we could backlight them. And I guess I've just reviewed every which way it could be lit. But I don't know. We're going back and forth. And the first thing, some of it depended on the size. If we had to go smaller size, then we'd probably use a brighter lighting to make it bigger. If we got this size, we might externally light it, especially because it's pretty expensive to channel light that whole thing. I also have we have to figure out just an issue. The Westmont yard, I like the logo, but it's the black part of it is hard to light up as a sign. So it looks great in the day. So I don't have an answer to that. I was coming here to just see what you guys felt about the size, and once I could kind of figure out the size, we would figure out the lighting.
Question for you, Shannon. Is there a difference as to how we view this based on the different types of lighting possibilities, or is it really treated all as the same sign?
It's generally going to be treated the same. The one thing maybe just to mention as a point of caution would be, depending on what lighting system you're using, there can only be an 18-inch projection for the wall sign. It can only come off the
Oh, you mean
wall.
it can only come off the
Yeah.
wall? Okay. I think that's okay.
But all the lighting standards would be the same regardless of lighting type used.
Okay, great. I have no further questions. Any other comments by
Yeah, I just, now that you've clarified that the letters are only 5 foot tall, that was something that slipped me, by me, but that's probably about the same size as the ones on Westbrook Market, so I don't really have an objection.
And I apologize. I tried to do some of the research you said, but I just was short of taking a ladder over to these markets. I asked a few of the, how big are Home Depot, what are they, and I couldn't get any good answers. So I think you bring up a good question. I just couldn't find out.
Any other comments by commissioners? All right, because a variance is requested here, we're going to have some findings of fact first. Fred, please.
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. In addition to the large sports complex on the property is host to an attached multi-tenant building. In order to attract high-quality national and regional tenants to this location, the applicant requires sufficient identification signage. The multi-tenant building is set back from the right-of-way approximately 230 feet, thereby creating a visibility concern from the roadway and a hardship for the applicant. Due to the fact that the sports complex is located immediately behind the multi-tenant building, increased signage is required for this use. Without this additional signage and marketing, the applicant cannot yield a reasonable return at this location.
Commissioners in favor of this, please raise your hand. It's unanimous.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The multi-tenant retail building is set back from the 63rd Street right-of-way approximately 230 feet, and the sports complex is set back approximately 285 feet. This large setback increases the need for additional signage. The large number of tenants and users of this property, all of whom require sufficient marketing and exposure through signage, necessitates this request.
Commissioners agreeing with this finding of fact, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The area is a mostly commercial area with a large number of identification signs vying for consumers' attention. The proposed signs are high quality and consistent with the existing signs in the immediate area. The requested 21.4% increase in signage will not alter the essential character of the area.
Commissioners agreeing with these findings of fact, please raise your hand. We are unanimous once again. Thank you, Fred. Findings of fact are approved for this item. I'll now entertain a motion for planning and zoning item 10-001, a zoning code variance request to increase the maximum gross square footage of signage.
So move.
Second?
Item is, motion is made by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner Van Buren. Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
And Chairman Pill?
Yes. All right. It passes unanimously. Mr. Gust, thank you very much. And either Fred or Shannon will be in touch with you to let you know when this moves forward to the Village Board Committee of the whole meeting on a Thursday night.
Great,
Thanks
thanks.
and good luck. The
Thank you very
building
much.
looks great.
Yeah, it's coming along finally. It was a little bit, October was rough with the rain, but we're getting the walls up now, and it's coming along. So hopefully sometime
impressive.
in the spring. Thanks.
Nice job.
Thank you.
All right. Planning and zoning item 10-002. Matthew, I hope I don't mispronounce this, Boakes and Anna Quinones Boakes, regarding the property located at 24 North Washington Street in Westmont for the following. A zoning code variance request to encroach into the required side yard setback for the purpose of constructing a portico. Code requires a 6-foot setback and approximately 3.5 is proposed. Good evening.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Matt Boakes, and this is my wife, Anna Quinones Boakes. We just moved to Westmont in March, and we moved from Oak Park, and we love the town. And we bought a place on Washington Street, and this is sort of what we're looking to do. Well, we're looking to get a variance for a covered portico on the side of our house. So this area right here. Our garage is detached, and it's set back 70 feet from our side door. And so it's a fairly long distance from the door, which is, you can see on the plat of survey. So basically, we want to put a covered portico in there so we can pull our car in and, unload. Various safety reasons, I think, is the first thing that comes to my mind. Being able to traverse that whole distance, especially for her, I'm just a little concerned with, first thing. And secondly, with inclement weather, ice or snow, rain, sleet, whatever, it just makes it is going to be a lot easier and simpler to get out and straight in. And and we plan in the near future to start a family, so it would be significantly easier to traverse right in that area, carrying bags, et cetera. So, kids. And kids. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. So that's sort of the summary of the why we're requesting this.
Anything else that you would want to comment on that addresses the specific variance request?
Yeah, the only other thing would be, we did go around and talk to all of our neighbors, especially our next door neighbor, who this would directly, site-wise impact, and he had no problem with it. And we talked to various others and got a signed copy from most of them, from the ones that we could, and they were all okay with it. So, yeah, that's one thing. And anything else?
Well, I mean, we bought the house as it was built, and we are aware that the driveway that already existed in the property was too close to the border, and there's nothing we can do about that. So the only way to construct this covered portico is by virtue of a variance, because the driveway is already too close to the property line. So in a way, the driveway is kind of breaking that variance rule, and that was done by the previous owner. That has nothing to do with us. So we're just kind of working with what we have.
Great.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Does anyone on staff have anything they would like to add to this?
Just for the record, there were a couple of other pre-existing nonconformities that were noted. There is a front yard setback that's legal nonconforming of 24.6 feet. And also the portico is proposed to go over the existing driveway as mentioned. So there's not going to be a net increase in lot coverage, but it looked like lot coverage was approximately 41%. And that should be noted just in case you guys want to do additions or something in the future, that you would need a variance approved in order to be able to increase your lot coverage.
Yep.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. Fred, anything you'd like to add?
Looks like a nice addition.
Yes. Okay, at this time, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this? Please step forward to the podium and sign in. Okay. We'll close the public hearing, and we'll start with some questions and comments from the commissioners. Commissioner Thomas.
Did it ever go through your mind that if you park the car there, once you have the overhang and the portico, that you won't have to shovel from there to the garage then?
Yeah. That did
That's the
occur.
first thing I thought of.
Absolutely.
No, I think it's going to be a very nice addition. And like
Yep.
you said, it's pre-existing condition as opposed, and concerning your neighbor. And good luck.
The one thing I also wanted to add is, I think it'll look nice. Just,
Right.
it's sort of tall in that area. I think it'll
Right.
frame it nicely.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Van Buren.
Yeah, I take it there's a door underneath the portico.
Yes.
So
Yes.
this is an easy
We
way to
do.
get in.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it at all.
right there. Yeah.
Commissioner Fidesco.
Door.
And I want to compliment you on talking to all your neighbors, because that's a good thing, you know, and I've seen all these names here, so I think that you're correct that they don't have any objections. And having raised a couple of children, and when they were very small, I know what it's like, that they come with a lot of baggage. So it'll be very easy once you have this installed to get them in and out of the car and into the house. Yeah. No, I don't have any objections. I think it's very nice.
Great, thank you. Well, first, welcome to Westmont. Nice to have
Thank you.
new residents here. That's great. And I also, too, want to commend you for not only talking to your neighbors, communication is so important, but providing us with a list of all of their signatures and addresses. That was very nice of you. Thank you.
Sure.
And I agree with the last comment that you made, Matthew, regarding the breakup of the side of that house. It is sort of a stark edge to it, and that will sort of soften it up a little bit, and I think it's a lovely addition to that neighborhood. I certainly support that and have no further questions. Anything else from any other commissioners or from our staff? Because a variance is required here, we have a finding of fact. Fred, if you'd like to read those for us, please.
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The applicant has a hardship in that their detached garage is located approximately 70 feet from the nearest entry to the residence, creating an inconvenient and at times unsafe condition for the property owners. Additionally, the side entrance off the existing driveway is often covered in ice during the winter, creating a dangerous situation when entering and exiting the house. The proposed portico will provide an aesthetic improvement to the house, will cure the problems of inconvenience and safety for the property owners, and will help the owners yield a reasonable return on this property.
Commissioners agreeing with that above finding, please raise your hands. We're unanimous.
The plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The plight of the owners is unique in that the detached garage is set back approximately 70 feet from the nearest entry into the house, creating an inconvenience for the owners and a safety concern at night. Although a variance is required for one side yard setback as a result of the proposed portico, the combined side yard setbacks exceed that required by code.
Commissioners agreeing with that above finding, please raise your hand. We're unanimous again.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The proposed portico is a complement to the existing architecture of the house and the surrounding neighborhood, is limited in size, and will not adversely impact the surrounding neighborhood.
Commissioners agreeing with that finding, please raise your hand. We're unanimous again. Thank you, Fred. All right. The findings of fact for this variance are passed. I will entertain a motion for Planning and Zoning Item 10-002, a zoning code variance request to encroach into the required side yard setback for the purpose of constructing a portico. Code requires a 6-foot setback and approximately 3.5 feet is proposed.
Motion as read.
Second?
Motion by Commissioner Fidesco, seconded by Commissioner Van Buren. Any further discussion on this? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Pill?
Yes.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Motion passes. And either Fred or Shannon will let you know and coordinate the schedule. You will be before the village board on a Thursday committee of the whole meeting in the near future. And we certainly welcome you again and wish you luck with this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All righty. Planning and Zoning Item 10-003, Patrick Womack of Laurel BMW of Westmont regarding the property located at 420 East Ogden Avenue, Westmont for the following. A special use permit request to operate an automobile dealership in the B2 General Business District. Welcome and good evening.
Good evening. Here representing Laurel BMW, we purchased the property at 420 East Ogden Avenue, and we're requesting a special use permit to expand our dealership. At this point, it's just going to be parking of inventory over there, and as we go forward with future plans, obviously we'll be filling you in and discussing what our options are at that point in time. But right now, all we're looking for is a special permit to be able to park inventory over there until we decide what's going to happen with the property, or the building, excuse me.
Great.
And
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Womack, the intention now is to use the existing building as it is, just for storage and other things?
I don't know if you know this, but a few weeks ago we had a little minor flood in there, so right now we're not using the building for anything. It's been gutted. A water main had broken. There was about 2 feet of water inside of it, so we've stripped it just so there's no mold or anything growing at this point in time. We're just getting the heat and water back up as of today, as a matter of fact, I think it was. So right now, the building won't be used for anything.
Okay.
As we determine what we're going to do sometime very soon, springtime, I would imagine, is what we'd like to eventually turn it into a showroom for used cars. There'll be no service out of that building. It might be used as it might have a little bit of a detail shop or something, but no service or anything will be ever happening. It's too small.
Any additional comments by staff?
If I could join on to what Fred was discussing, there was some conversation at the staff level about, there's been some clarity, I guess, in the last few days about what you may do there with the building at this point. Early on, it may have been demoed. At this point, it sounds like it's going to be retained. And we were informed that it would be used initially for office and then office-related storage kinds of uses. Yesterday, staff learned that there was some interest in doing the detailing work out of that location, and that possibly the building would be modified to add 2 overhead doors to do that without water, so it wouldn't be a car wash or laundry. It doesn't require any change to our special use because we'd consider the detailing accessory to what they're already doing with the car sales and display. But there were some points that may possibly need to be addressed in the special use permit, and that is just being specific about the types of activities that should be permitted there. So, for example, office inventory, office storage, detailing without car washing or water, no repairs, etc. And then there was also some concern as additional properties may potentially be assembled or redevelopment happens. We want to make sure that that is not a piecemeal fashion, that it happens in an orderly, not haphazard way. So one other possible suggestion is limiting the special use at this time. If there's going to be any work done on the building, that it be remodel work only, not expansion of the building.
Which we're okay with.
You're okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else, Fred?
We can't make it look any worse than it does.
Good
No
point.
parking on the grass, one other point as well.
Okay, no parking on the grass.
And typically, we've handled those kind of conditions a couple of ways. One, if you feel necessary, you can make a motion to accompany the main motion with those conditions. Alternatively, Shannon put all of those in her write-up, which I have note of, and can put those into the ordinance, and we'll put those in the ordinance, especially since the applicant is here apparently agreeing to those special conditions.
Very straightforward, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this issue, either for or against? Please step forward and sign in. Okay, we'll close the public hearing on this, and we'll start with our commissioners. Commissioner Fidesco.
Yeah, I only have one question regarding the overhead doors. If you do need to add those in for the detailing, would you put those in on the back side of the building?
They would be on the north side, which would be the back side
yes.
of the building.
Yes. Okay, that
That's
would be my only concern.
The way that the building is right now, there's a structural wall on the inside, which is, I don't know the exact dimension, but I think that wall will need to stay, and that would be the only place we'd be able to make it work anyway, so.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I don't have any issues with this. No further comment.
I just would like a clarification now. We can either set the issue of the building aside and go ahead and give the special use permit, or we can include all of the detail that you and John have referred to and that you suggested in our motion. Is that right?
Well, the work that they're doing wouldn't require a second special use permit because it's not considered an automobile laundry as per se because there's not water being
Right.
used there. They're going to vacuum, wax, and that kind of thing. So I think that staff was comfortable considering those as ancillary functions to the main special use.
Okay.
But if you want, you can make a motion, after you vote on the original motion, you can make a second motion to incorporate the special conditions recommended by staff, maybe something simple like that.
That's all I have.
Okay. Commissioner Thomas?
I was happy just that you needed the extra space. And,
So are we.
anything above that is just icing. And I'm happy that you need the space and that you've worked with staff already, making it as bumpless in the process as possible. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you. I too have agreement and no real questions on this. It has decreased my ability to enjoy a good slice of pie.
If you saw the inside of the place, Greg, you wouldn't want to eat there, trust me.
None of you are doing either, Pat, right? That's correct. All right, any other commissioners have comments? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, just kind of I guess, an economic development commercial or propaganda from staff at this time. Westmont feels very fortunate to be blessed with a world-class auto dealership cluster, of which Laurel BMW is a key participant. And while many other communities throughout the Chicagoland area and indeed across the nation have seen auto dealerships fail, had their franchises pulled, we have not seen that in Westmont. Quite to the contrary, we've seen our existing auto dealers in an expansion mode. We have two such examples here tonight. We feel very gratified by that, very fortunate to have them as corporate members of our community, and we're very pleased that they're moving ahead with this additional property expansion. We'd like to work with them, and they're a valuable part of our community.
Excellent, excellent. It looks like there's been good cooperation on this project too, and that's a plus for everyone. Once again, more good communication is always makes things a lot easier. As this is a request for special use, we do have a finding of fact required, and Fred, if you would be good enough, please.
Criteria number 1, the proposed use at this location will not have any adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with such a special use, irrespective of its location within the zoning district. This proposed automobile dealership use is identical to the multiple automobile dealerships along Ogden Avenue in the immediate vicinity of this property. The property includes an existing building and outdoor parking and is adjacent to the applicant's existing dealership. Nothing about this proposed use will pose any adverse or unique effects beyond those customarily associated with auto dealerships in the B2 General Business District.
Commissioners agreeing, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 2, the proposed use meets the special conditions of special condition number 2. The property contains sufficient means for ingress and egress and will be used primarily for storage of vehicle inventory. As a result, it will not generate significant vehicular or pedestrian traffic at this location.
Commissioners agreeing, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 3, the proposed use meets the special conditions of special condition number 4. No portion of the property is located within 500 feet of a residence district.
Commissioners agreeing with this, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 4, the proposed use meets the special conditions of special condition number 7. The applicant at this time is not planning on servicing any vehicles at this location. Therefore, there will be no vehicles awaiting service or customer pickup. As a result, a landscaping plan providing for screening is not required at this time.
Commissioners agreeing with this, please raise your hand. We're unanimous once again. All right. Findings of fact pass. I will entertain a motion for Planning and Zoning Item 10-003, a special use permit request to operate an automobile dealership in the B2 General Business District.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion by Commissioner Thomas and a second by Commissioner Fidesco. Is there any further discussion?
No, it's Commissioner.
Oh, Commissioner Van Buren, I'm sorry, seconded that, my mistake. Any further discussion on that by commissioners? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fidesco? Yes. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Pell.
Votes yes. Thank you. Pat, you have our recommendation.
We were going to do a second motion.
Right, right.
You want to do that? Yes, okay.
Can be phrased as a motion to request incorporating the special conditions set out in the staff write-up into any ordinance that is approved.
I would so move.
Second.
All right. The motion as stated by Attorney Zemanek is made by Commissioner Van Buren and seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Any discussion on the secondary motion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Pell.
Votes yes also. Pat, now you have our recommendation for both. And either Fred or Shannon will be in touch with you to let you know when you'll appear before the Village Board of the Committee of the Whole on an upcoming Thursday meeting. Thanks and best of luck.
Thank you.
All righty, continuing. Planning and Zoning Item 10-004. Edwin Vovets, and I apologize. Vidovitz, I'm sorry. Of Keeler Real Estate LLC with Walgreens regarding the properties located at 1 and 5 East Ogden Avenue in Westmont for the following. A special use permit request for the drive-through pharmacy window. B, a plat of subdivision to consolidate 3 parcels into 1 buildable lot. C, a zoning code variance request to limit parking in the supplemental front yard setback. D, a zoning code variance request to allow more than 2 identification signs on a corner lot. E, zoning code variance request to increase the maximum gross square footage of signage, and F, a site and landscaping plan review. Good evening, and I apologize again.
Oh, don't apologize. I'm not Mr. Vidovitz. My name is David Shaw. I'm the one that sounded like the infirmary, and I apologize because I'm victimized by our tropical weather. But in any event, I am the attorney for the petitioner, and with me tonight is Mr. Edwin Vidovitz, who's a principal of Keeler Real Estate, the petitioner. John Bradshaw is our architect from Cambarras and Theodore, and Jeff Miller is our engineer from Watermark Engineering, all of whom will be testifying and offering some hopefully enlightening information relative to the project. Very briefly, this is a proposed redevelopment of the southeast corner of Ogden and Cass. We propose to raise the existing structures and construct a Walgreens consisting of approximately 14,800 square feet. It's a project that I know Mr. Vidovitz has been working on for probably 4 years with Walgreens. And I should point out that, as some of you may know, Walgreens is kind of in a hold mode, except it's to certain locations. This is one of those locations, and this will be a company-owned facility, which again is something unusual. It's a step out of their standard process and procedure. The site is approximately 1.65 acres. It is self-contained as to parking. It will also accommodate the requirements of stormwater detention. And we are asking for special uses and variances in this instance. And with that, I would like to ask Jeff Miller, our engineer, to walk you through the site plan, and then we'll have John deal with the building itself and elevations. And thank you.
As David said, my name is Jeff Miller with Watermark Engineering Resources Limited. We're located at 2631 Woods Parkway in Aurora, Illinois. I'm signing in. We've been asked by Keeler Real Estate to prepare site plans, landscape plans, photometric plans, civil engineering plans for this project. And that's what we have done over the last year or so. And unfortunately, I'm got to mail mine. I can only do one thing at a time. So I apologize for that. Okay. Oh, sorry. The existing conditions, real quick. This is the survey of the property. There's a lot going on here, but in general, there's the existing White Castle right here, and Ogden Avenue is right here, and Cass Avenue is here. And then the existing Phillips building, I'll call it, in general, is right there, with the appropriate parking that serves both of them. Adjacent to the east is an existing building here that's set back from Ogden that is acting as a child care facility right now. And then to the south is a multi-storied office building here with the parking that surrounds it. No existing residential adjacent to the property. What we are proposing to do is, as David said, is to locate a Walgreens store here. Is there any way we can get it blown out a little bit?
Further?
Ogden being at the top of the screen there, Cass Avenue being on the left side of the screen. The detention facility is down here on the south end of the property, and obviously the Walgreens building is in the center of the property. We're proposing 2 access points as far away from the intersection as we can provide them. One being located on Cass here, full access driveway, and one here on Ogden at the northeast corner, right in, right out access. Right in, right out is we've been in contact verbally with IDOT, as well as emails, quite honestly, that say that they will require the right in, right out driveway, and that's what we're proposing to do. So we've, as you may remember from the site plan, we've consolidated quite a few driveways on on both roadways actually to come up with this plan, so I think it's a much cleaner access plan. And in general, from a service drive aspect, that the truck is proposed to enter at this location and circulate counterclockwise along the east side of the building. The dock area is right in this area, in this concrete pad area, and these are two compactor locations that are be screened off with walls that John will go over in a little bit. And then the truck will sit here, do its loading and unloading, and then pull out the right-out driveway onto Ogden Avenue. And any other service vehicles, that's the path they're going to use. So all of the service vehicles will be out and away from the pedestrians and the customers along the front part of the property. It works very well for this to keep it segregated that way. The drive-through is on the south side of the building here, shown as this with this canopy. The drive-through lane is here, and then they would exit and head this way. This southern driveway and eastern driveway are both one-way driveways in that counterclockwise rotation, allowing for a very clean, easy drive-through access and maneuverability. This plan has stacking available for approximately 6 cars. Walgreens doesn't see that type of stacking. They don't see the kind of stack, I don't know if everybody's familiar with it or not, but they don't see the kind of stacking like a McDonald's or a fast food restaurant would see. Typically if there's more than 3 or 4 vehicles in the drive-through, people will drive around, park, and go inside, or come back at a later time. And there was a national traffic study done that proved that out. Their average stacking was 3. And so we have the capacity for 6. And so we feel that this is a great location for the drive-through, as it's away basically from both frontages. It's somewhat protected from view of adjacent properties. It's quite a bit of a setback from the south across our stormwater detention facility, and then it's adjacent to the existing fence here on the property. This is a delivery area on the existing building, and then this is a blank wall here. This is a playground area to the south. So headlights, that kind of thing, won't be shining into the, adversely into the neighbors' operations. The other item that we are proposing is a plat of consolidation. I have an exhibit for that, but that's pretty straightforward. There's 3 existing lots on the property, consolidating that into one, removing any excess easements that are on the property so that we basically clean the property up, have one tax parcel when we're done with it. We have, one of our exhibits is a blow-up of the drive-through area. And this depicts it much better, as this is one of the main variances we're asking for. The dimension from the edge of this drive-through to the property line is, on the average, 75 feet. So it's set back quite a ways from the property line. And it's protected, as I say. This shows the 6 stacking spaces here. Typically, we won't get past there or there in what I personally witnessed, as well as what the traffic study says. So any stacking won't block the entrance for the rest of the circulation, and nor will it back out into the roadway. Our parking that we're proposing is 57 parking spaces, which is 5 more than the ordinance requires of 52, based on the net usable area within the facility. And we feel that's much more than adequate for what Walgreens typically requires on their stores of this size. And the parking is within the 30-foot setbacks off of both Cass and Ogden Avenue. The existing parking in this area for the White Castle is approximately 5 feet off the property line. And so we're pulling our parking 10 feet off the property line on both Ogden and Cass, which, as you drive up and down Ogden Avenue, that's more than normal. And the reason for the setback being reduced is mainly because of the retail nature of the use, and being a corner lot, the parking is near the front door. I mean, that's where everybody needs to funnel in clientele-wise. And so that's why we needed the parking in the front side of the building, which is adjacent to the roadways. And it puts us into that 30-foot setback. The detention and all the stormwater required BMPs, we are working on those right now and putting that package together for Kim to review. We will be able to provide 100% of our storage on site. There's a combination of this detention basin as well as underground storage that would fall underneath the parking lot on this part of the building, part of the property. But 100% of the requirement is met.
And the missing storm sewer line has been found?
Yes. They actually, it was down in the southeast corner, southeast corner, and they had to hand dig approximately 4 feet down to find it. And that storm sewer runs along the south property line of all these parcels that front Ogden Avenue, and it discharges into Warwick Road. And so we'll have our restricted outlet here, so it should actually reduce the amount of water that leaves this site in a normal rainfall. So from what's there today, because right now there is some detention, but not to the extent that we'll be providing. So that covers the elements of the site plan and the landscape plan, and then John will help out with the building description.
The board's going around if you want to reference that. Do you need it back?
Good evening. My name is John Bradshaw. I'm with Camberson Theodore Architects. I'm a licensed architect with that firm. I'll keep this brief with the architecture. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll be glad to answer them. Keeping in mind brevity, I think I'll just mention those things that make this a non-prototypical Walgreens. This is not a prototypical Walgreens. On the main elevations, which are the north and west elevations, I'll point out specifically this, there is one script sign. Typically a Walgreens will have a 33-foot script sign. We've opted for one significantly less. This is 25 feet. They've also omitted their 24-hour, their photo and their pharmacy from those. Also in these two main elevations, the awnings that we've shown here, we've changed this metal, which is typically a green standing seam metal awning, to something more in the bronze, which you'll see if the material sample is made it around. It's shown on there. So these colors, don't rely on these colors in this color copy because they're not entirely accurate. Those are the accurate colors. Also in this elevation, we have a non-prototypical mortar and pestle sign, which is behind the entry glass. This is not a neon sign anymore. This is now an internally illuminated sign. Also, as is prototypical with Walgreens, they generally have a cast stone sign band and cast stone pilasters as well. In this case, we've opted to go entirely with brick. Also, picking up on Shannon's wish, we've also kind of created this wainscoting at the bottom to create some relief in the elevation. The west elevation reflects those same changes. The drive-through awning, which is over the drive-through, is now also a bronze aluminum, standing seam aluminum. On the south elevation, you can see a little bit better what the drive-through awning is. And also, at the back side of the entry, we've changed that, which is basically a sheet metal, which is on the back of the entry. We've changed the color of that to match the brick. Again, this rendering doesn't show it as a very good match. We'll be a lot closer on that match. Finally, on the east elevation, the trash enclosures, which are generally a clear cedar, just stained, we've opted in this case to have masonry enclosures for both the trash and the tote enclosure. I also have some signage sheets over there if you'd like to see them. Generally, the signage at the corner, we're using a standard pylon sign, which is Walgreens' 25-foot pylon sign. And we're also using a monument sign at the entry on Cass, which is a 6-foot tall sign. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Not yet at this time. I don't.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me. Perhaps could you just elaborate a little bit, since you brought up the sign issue, perhaps a little bit of the hardship that would justify the variance for the sign issues?
Sure, I think, and I'm probably not the best person to go into it. I think Jeff or Edwin might be able to elaborate, but the pylon sign, I think there's some issues with IDOT and clearances as well. So a monument sign at that corner could potentially block those visibilities. And Walgreens generally likes to have something that marks the entry on Cass, so they've opted for a smaller monument sign at that location.
Thank you.
Sure.
As John said, that the view triangle at that intersection is, it's a significant intersection, and a monument sign would be opaque all the way down to the ground, the full width of the sign, and you would not be able to see through it or past it until you either move beyond it. And with a pylon sign, it's just a single tube steel type of a monument or a base that's approximately has 10 feet of clearance, I believe, that the sign exhibit shows, from the ground to the bottom of the sign, so that there's good visibility, both pedestrian and vehicular, to see through that view triangle at that intersection. And so that was the desire for that type of signage as opposed to a monument sign.
Thank you. Any additional comments by the team?
Not really, unless there are additional questions from the commission. That basically concludes our presentation. We'd be happy to fill in any more detail in response to any questions you have.
Great. May come in just a moment then.
Sure.
Is there anything that staff would like to add to this first, please?
Just a couple of things. This evening, we passed out some copies of some staff review comments from our village landscape architect, Bob Fleck, and planning engineer, Kim Nickel, the engineering preliminary review comments. Generally, with the landscaping review comments, they're pretty straightforward, some species recommendations and then some location changes that staff will be working with the applicant on. As far as the engineering review comments goes, I think the petitioners have done a good job of explaining that they're going to contain all of the stormwater on site. One review comment that Mr. Budovitz and I had discussed at one point was the traffic or traffic management easement, which the village would like to put in place in order to install a red light camera at the intersection of Cass and Ogden. The engineering review comments contain some language as far as what that easement would be. It's approximately 7 by 10 feet, and we'd like to work with the petitioner as far as that is concerned. The one other point, staff wasn't aware of any conversation with Department of Transportation in terms of the signage up to this point or until this evening. The petitioners have been very good about working through the comments that staff has had up to now, but that has been one sticking point that we have gone back and forth on. Is we'd really like to see that monument sign there, if at all possible, at that intersection. Obviously, we'll have to take those safety considerations into our minds right now. That being said, code allows 2 signs on a corner lot. applicants can decide how they want to divvy that up between wall and ground signage. The petitioners are asking for a total of 5 signs, 2 ground signs, the 1 pylon and the 1 monument. The monument's about 22 square feet. The pylon's about 130. The 2 wall signs measuring about 149 square feet each. And then the internal mortar and pestle, which is about 35 square feet. The total they're asking for is about 486.2 square feet, where 195 square feet would be permitted by code. The easy omission in staff's mind was to go with just the monument sign and maybe work with them to do some sort of electronic message board within that monument sign, which you see at some stores, and then just eliminate the other sign entirely. We may now have to look at doing the pylon sign to accommodate the safety concerns, but staff strongly recommends just 1 ground sign for the property. There won't be any disputing the fact that it is a Walgreens.
With that. Within those guidelines, we'd be happy to continue to work with staff and to work that issue out. We could probably work with the 1 sign. We'll have to clarify the safety issue and the electronic message board.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. Fred?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to elaborate briefly on some of the comments that the petitioners have made with regard to stormwater engineering. One of the buildings is relatively new that will be replaced, that being the White Castle property. The other building was there from a number of years ago before we had current stormwater ordinances and engineering requirements in place. It is the feeling of professional engineering staff here at the Village of Westmont that this new development will in fact improve slightly the drainage in the area because the aggregated assemblage of property will now be re-engineered and retained on site. I know the petitioners just about had a heart attack when they predicated their entire stormwater engineering design on the presence of a storm sewer line there, and it took us, what, 4 or 5 tries to go out in the field and find that darn thing. As it turns out, some previous development had covered up the stormwater inlet with about 4 feet of compacted earth and grass growing over it. So it's no wonder we couldn't find it, and we began to question the accuracy of our stormwater atlases, but we finally got the call eureka. It was in fact there. We think this is going to be a good design that will slightly improve the drainage for the entire area. And this is very near some of those areas that are being addressed by our current village-wide stormwater study with Christopher Burke Engineering near the Warwick area, just a little bit to the south, where we do have some great concerns there. So, we want the general public to know that, engineering and stormwater issues are of great concern during development phases like this and projects like this. And again, a little bit of an economic development commercial for the Village of Westmont. As the petitioners have noted, Walgreens, like many other major retailers, is in a kind of a holding pattern with regard to the development of new stores. And yet they've chosen Westmont for this new development of their stores, even though they have one at Main and Ogden and Downers Grove and another one at 63rd and Cass. This meets the kind of spacing that Walgreens has had great success with in their national marketing strategy. And we see no reason to think that this one would be anything other than a very successful store at this location. And since Walgreens is now in kind of this prudent expansion mode, we're hoping that we can get the Walgreens folks to make a call to Mooresville, North Carolina, maybe convince the Lowe's people that now is a good time to build new stores. So having said that way.
That cannot be a condition of...
No.
However.
Teamwork. Very good. Any other additional comments from staff?
No, thank you.
Great. We'll open up the public hearing on this. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this, please come forward and sign in at the podium. Hello.
Hi. I don't know how good that's going to come across.
If you could give us your name and address. And
Sure. My name is Mary Robertson, and I live at 320 North Warwick, and I'm going to try to write and talk to. The proposed Walgreens, I'm neutral on. I have no real opinion. I'm more concerned about the traffic in our neighborhood on Warwick Avenue. I don't believe any of you are my neighbors on Warwick Avenue, but if you've been on Warwick Avenue, it's because odds are you, like most everyone in the area, uses Warwick as a cut-through. And according to what I saw on the site plans, the Ogden Avenue entrance and exit is pretty much right turn only, which makes sense. The problem is especially during rush hour traffic, people who want to go southbound on Cass, they're not going to be able to do it. They're going to have to try to get across 3 lanes to try to go southbound. The easiest thing, along with all the trucks too that are going to make deliveries, the drive-through, the easiest thing they're going to try to do is make a right turn, and the next right is going to be Warwick Avenue. I've lived on Warwick Avenue since 1961, and gradually, it has not been overnight, but gradually, that street has been taking a pounding. It's obscene. Item number 1 here that I marked, this is my low-tech way of putting a picture together, but on the 500 block, we got nailed with a traffic light when that Jewel Osco, back then it was turnstile, went in. So we get the cut-through traffic from anyone who shops at that store, be they from Hinsdale, Clarendon Hills, whatever, south side of Westmont. The people who do not use Ogden Avenue come down the street. Also in the 500 block, there are several curb cuts in there for businesses that have leaked onto Warwick Avenue. We have the Park Federal Bank there with curb cuts that go onto Warwick. There is also the gas station across the street from there. It also has a curb cut at Warwick. And then the West Suburban veterinaries are there. Okay, so we've got businesses that have curb cuts. I know the vet, those people are not supposed to be making a right to come down the street. Just last night, I came home from my sister's house, car pulled out right behind me. They ignored the no right turn sign. And you can't have police on the street all the time. We're very understanding about that. Then where I have marked number 3 and in red dots, those are the only 4-way stop areas that are in the area. So on Warwick Avenue between Ogden and Chicago Avenue, that is the only 4-way stop sign. There is none at Melrose, so going from Ogden to Chicago, it is less of a resistance path than Cass Avenue. Cass Avenue, as you can see, has more traffic lights to interfere. That design had made our street the best cut through for anyone, especially coming off of 83 or whatever. We are the last chance exit to get through town without having to sit in traffic on Cass. And I know everyone sat in traffic on Cass. Item number 4, as Fred said, we've had our share of flooding in there, and as you can see here with the designs of the houses here, right here, that shows right there the story of where our water sits. And you know, God forbid, I'm hoping that we do get some relief, but when that floods there, it swallows traffic also, it swallows the cars. Number 5, as I spoke, that's the area where there's only a 2-way stop sign there off of Melrose into 400 block. Oh, and when I mentioned the 400 block, I do have a neighbor who asked me to voice his concerns too. He could not be at the meeting. He's working tonight, but he said, yes, let the village know that he's got a young child and he and his wife have extreme concerns about our traffic problems. Anyways, as you move on to the 300 block, our 300 block, and Fred is well aware of this problem, half of our block is zoned multifamily, half is zoned single-family homes. So we have got a very high rate of population to begin with that we're dealing with. between the 32-unit apartment building, some townhomes, duplexes, and everything like that. So already in that block, we are swamped with our own traffic issues. And so, like I said, this didn't all happen overnight. This has been a slow stacking type of thing. And while I have no problems with a successful Walgreens coming in, my question is more to the village. Is the village, as the village wants more businesses like this to come in, are they prepared to help us out? Because our neighborhoods are getting trashed. I mean, it's dangerous. All the improvements that have occurred over on Blackhawk is wonderful and everything. Our street is deteriorating, it's narrow, and it has a lot of high-speed traffic. And I just think the volume of traffic and business that Walgreens is going to produce is going to somehow wind up, a good chunk of it's going to wind up on our street, which is already at its wit's end. And that's all I wanted to offer up. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for your comments. Yes.
Hi, good evening. I'm Janet Duncan, 319 Warwick, across the street from Mary.
Hi, Janet. Good evening.
Just a good evening. A resident in this last year in Westmont.
Welcome.
I'm very familiar with the area. And also in that area that is affected by floodwater. So I guess there was no moratorium on new development, or maybe that was a residential moratorium regarding water displacement and detention ponds that were being, well, I guess that still hasn't been concluded in the survey, but I wanted to know, is this Walgreens a 24-hour Walgreens? Has that been?
Gentlemen, perhaps you'd like to address that. Might be easier. Will you have several questions or just a few, depending how I bring people up to answer? Because we need to do it near the microphones.
I actually pretty much ditto Mary's points. We kind of had a little point meeting. I have the same concerns. It's mainly about the additional traffic because it's the only southbound route close to the exit of the Walgreens. And then exhaust, idling cars, idling trucks, delivery trucks, exhaust. It's a driving location, not a walking pedestrian location as it would be downtown.
I'm curious if you've noticed any decrease in traffic now with the reopening of the improved Blackhawk.
Not so much.
Not so much, so it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, I work nights, so I kind of witness a lot of the day traffic.
A lot of times people prefer when there's a new street and it's all smooth and everything, all of a sudden that starts to attract people, and I was curious whether they had moved over a block or two then.
Probably some of the traffic has resumed using Blackhawk, but we still have, because of our proximity to Cass, I believe we get a lot of traffic to avoid Cass. I kind of don't blame them, but then it really backs up on Chicago Avenue. So, yeah, and again, I know they said they would be close to the traffic light, or as far away from the intersection as possible, but making a right-hand turn when that light is green, going east on Ogden, making a right-hand turn can take quite a long time. It just seems like there's going to be a lot of added exhaust of idling cars. Is it a 24-hour?
No,
not a 24, okay.
We are asking for approval for it. We'll not open up as a 24 hours.
Okay.
Perhaps we could have the answer up at the podium.
And if I may make one preliminary comment, I think from a legal standpoint, the village is a little bit hamstrung regarding controlling traffic down Warwick as it relates just to this development, because the IDOT is the entity that controls Ogden, and IDOT is saying there has to be a right-hand turn only onto Ogden Avenue from this development. The village can't control that. The only option available to the village would be to say there's no ingress-egress onto Ogden Avenue, and that would be unreasonable, and Walgreens would sue the village saying we have a right to get onto this major street.
Sure.
And of course, the village wants to encourage some form of economic development or redevelopment on this corner. So I think the village is a little hamstrung for a solution based on this development. But I think your problems probably should be voiced in a separate context to the village board. Hey, we've got this cut-through traffic problem. Is there any other solution, irrespective of whether Walgreens gets approved or not?
Right.
and maybe
And-
they can look at it.
How does that get addressed?
Well, I think you need to bring it to the village board. I think some of those concerns have been voiced in the past, but once again, you can ask, and the village board and staff can look at it, and I don't know that there is a solution, but at least you can maybe get a response to that issue from the village board, separate and apart from this
Zoning.
development.
Yeah. And also, in regards to these meetings, maybe it's the old hippie, I don't have a computer, I don't have cable TV. How do you get information on meeting minutes, or how do I access information, say?
You're right, the computer is the easiest because the village does post them on its website, but short of that, everything's available through a Freedom of Information Act request. So if you come down to the village clerk's office and make a request for specific meetings, minutes, or minutes as to a particular subject matter, we would comply with that request in a timely fashion.
So I think the Westmont Public Library has advanced copies of all agendas and packet materials that's available for the general public at any time.
Well, and computers at the library, good point. All right, thank you.
But they have physical packets. I mean, you'll have the written material in written form at the public library, where you don't need a computer to witness it.
Did you have any other comment you were going to make also, Fred?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, not to speak for the petitioners, but I understand the concern about traffic in a southbound manner down Warwick. However, some of the traffic exiting this new development, this proposed development, the way the site plan lays out, can access and turn left or south on Cass Avenue out of the parking lot. And there's nothing to preclude drive-through traffic coming around the south and east sides of the building to then turn back west while on the Walgreens property, turn back south and exit south out of that exit onto Cass Avenue. So not all of the traffic would choose to turn right onto Ogden Avenue. We're hopeful that some of it would circulate back through the parking lot and back south on Cass Avenue to try to ease some of the concerns that the two residents have just voiced.
I think one of their concerns perhaps was that during rush hour, folks would think that they could never make it across the 3 lanes and would opt for
Back
that
up.
if they wanted to go
That's true.
southbound.
That's true.
So that's still, but I think the rest of the time, I've been a visitor now and then to the White Castle that's located there, and just now and then. And anyway, I've been able to successfully navigate that turn without too much problem, except, yes, during rush hours, there's a problem. But once you get past about 7 o'clock at night, it's not too bad. Not too much there early in the morning, but even during the lunch hours, it's not too bad. 4 to 7, pretty rough. Agree with you. I believe you were going to address the 24-hour question.
We are not planning to operate a 24-hour store, but we would like to reserve the right to do so if the demand is there. We generally find that it's a service that is self-dictated by the community in terms of whether or not that need is there. But the 2 other issues that were raised and I think are important to note, number one, in terms of truck deliveries, the main Walgreens trucks, first of all, there are only a few deliveries a week. All of the Walgreens labeled trucks actually have an automatic shutoff. They can't idle for more than 5 minutes. And we do direct that all of our other delivery trucks, vans, et cetera, turn their engines off while hand carting delivery into the store to stock. With respect to the drive-through, it's really a benign type of use has been emphasized. It's not like a bank or a Starbucks or a McDonald's. The average for the day is probably somewhere between 35 and 50 cars for the entire day. And it's not a full-service drive-up window. It's just a drop-off and pick-up for prescriptions. So you don't have a lot of idling cars. The average transaction is probably 3 minutes long. And that never really is much of a concern in terms of either noise or exhaust. So hopefully those will alleviate some of the other concerns.
Thank you. Are there any other comments from anyone in the audience? If not, I'll close the public hearing on that, and we will start with our commissioners, beginning with Commissioner Thomas.
When they were presenting how the delivery trucks were going to pull up, now are they pulling up beside, are they backing into? Because when you were showing the drawing, it looked like the truck was parked, going to be blocking any exits coming out from the drive-through.
Same question.
Where are the trucks going to be parked?
The truck will sit right here. And they're very cognizant of the fact that they got to keep this open for the
Okay.
drive-through to exit and that kind of thing. And there's enough room for that to happen, for the truck to sit here, the tractor will be here, the trailer will be here. And then the delivery door is right about that location.
Okay,
So
thank you.
they try to stay on the concrete pad. Wide concrete pad is there.
And to the residents that were worried about the traffic, like John said, that's probably a better question for the trustees, Board of Trustees to address, who recently have been just pleading for input from the public about anything that the public is concerned with. So just because they've heard this before doesn't hurt for them to hear it again, your concerns about cut-through traffic and that, and plans that they might have or thoughts that they might have on solutions and that. And that the flooding will not also be addressed by this, a cure for the flooding is not going to be addressed by this project. It was slightly improved drainage, but that's still going to be a problem too, apparently. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Van Buren.
Yeah, I had the same question about the drive-through, and I answered that. One thing I would like to commend both our staff and the people representing Walgreens for where you've been working together, and it looks like we have a very workable situation, and I certainly would like to welcome Walgreens again to Westmont. That's all I have.
Commissioner Fidesco.
I also had that same exact question regarding the delivery truck, and the people exiting the drive-through.
It wasn't just me then.
No.
Good.
And as far as the traffic exiting during the rush hour to the left, going southbound on Cass, I'm another one that's visited the current White Castle and tried to make that during rush hour, and I didn't. I would turn to the north and circle around, and obviously I was one of those people that cut through, because during rush hour there is no other way of doing it, because I live south. So it's, that's just comes with the territory during rush hour. But the rest of the time I've actually been able to make that turn. So some point in time, during that rush hour period, there will be some traffic that's going to go southbound, and it's going to wind up doing exactly what the residents have a concern with. But I don't know how we prevent it. It's just, that's the way it is. Now, maybe an extra stop sign might get them to go over on Blackhawk. I don't know. But that's up to the village board. So. I like your project. I really like the exterior. I think it's a nice design. So, good luck.
Thank you. I have a few comments, basically not too many questions here. First of all, thank you for working with the staff on this. We really appreciate that, and I appreciate the upgrade in the finishes and things like that. And looking at different Walgreens, and for those of us who've grown up here in Chicago, we've seen a lot of different models over the years, and this is one of the prettiest ones I've seen. I like in layman's terms, the two-tone effect I like, and I like the color choices. The palette is very, very complimentary, and again, thanks for working together with the staff on that. Are the mechanicals enclosed up on the roof? Is that what I'm seeing in that upward protrusion?
Yeah, that's parapet walls.
Yeah, it'd probably be better if you were up there. Thank you.
Yeah, that parapet actually serves two purposes. One would be to, give you a heightened sign ban, and the other is to help block a majority of the mechanical equipment. And Walgreens tends to push most of the rooftop units towards this entry and behind these two parapets.
Can you move that down a little bit? And
sorry.
let's go to the third one there. Okay, what is the higher point as we're looking at the screen? Yes. Right
Okay,
there.
that's the backside of the entry tower.
That's okay. Very good. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's where they're at then. Everything is back behind that area, sort of.
It's in that general vicinity.
Area. Okay.
You know, there's basically access to the
I see
sign
that.
that they have there from that rooftop part.
What is the time frame for this project?
It's been how many years, Edwin?
The time frame started about 10 years ago, but my name's Edwin Vidovitz. I'm the petitioner and the developer on behalf of the Walgreens company. The time frame is approximately, we're still working with the current tenants that are in place to relocate them within the village, if possible. However, we're hoping to, with approval from the village and municipality, hoping to break ground approximately September of 2010.
Great.
As been mentioned several times, this is a very important location for the Walgreens company. They've been looking for this location and to fill this gap for them for many years, so they're anxious to get open.
I've had a couple of people who have asked me the question, and I didn't know the answer at the time, but in reading news reports in the paper, will this be one of the Walgreens that will choose to sell liquor?
All of the Walgreens that we are currently we're all like the 24-hour store. They are looking to reserve the right to serve liquor.
Mm-hmm. So it could go either way.
Sell liquor, yes.
Not serve.
They're not opening a bar, I can assure you of that.
In lieu of the 24 hours, what are the? Do you have hours in mind already for the store?
I can at a later time. I can assure you they will not be serving liquor 24 hours straight, though. So.
Hours of operation.
Oh, 7 to 11, is that correct? 7 to 11.
Pretty much 7 days a week?
7 days a week.
Slightly altered on Sunday and Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Great. I too like the designs, and I really appreciate the thoroughness of the presentation and the handouts that we received. It gave us a great chance to look at everything in detail. I appreciate it. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Attorney Zemanek.
Just a few questions. Am I correct, there's no loudspeaker for the drive-through? Or is there a loudspeaker?
No, not a loudspeaker. Have you been through a Walgreens drive-through?
Not through the drive-through, no.
Okay, yeah, there is a little tiny speaker on there so that the person inside can communicate with the driver, but from personal experience, I have a hard time hearing it in my car, so essentially, no, there's not a loudspeaker.
It's not like a remote speaker at a bank, and I know what you're thinking about. This probably, the microphone in that little window just basically simulates a conversational tone as if it was standing next to the window. It's not meant to project any further than that.
Is it necessary to have any sort of do not enter signs? You know, you have the one-way circulation to prevent cars. I don't know if you're planning on that, or maybe it's not necessary because traffic won't flow that way, but I thought I'd ask.
John, that was actually a comment in the staff report too that we'd like to work through with you, especially at the northeast corner of the building. There could be some potential conflict there.
Yeah, the latest site plan, I think the one that was submitted with the application shows do not enter signs on either side of that at that point.
I assume there's dry bottom detention with no retaining wall planned at this point?
I'm glad you asked. I thought we were going to get out of here tonight without anybody asking about my detention pond. And, you know, DuPage County requires you to put BMPs, and actually it's strayed away from having just a grass boring pond. Now we have to plant that with some native plantings, and it will be a flat bottom pond. There will be a small pool area on the very east end from a sediment standpoint and dilution standpoint. And then the bottom of it will have a floristic quality, natural native type plant at the bottom of the basin. And then the sidewalls will be natural as well. And then the top level that you see from the street will be a manicured lawn that's mowed regularly on the top edge. But everything from the top of embankment down within the basin will be more of a natural planting.
With a 3-to-1 slope or whatever the required.
Right. Yeah, there's no proposed retaining walls in the basin. It's all
Hazard. I guess what I'm getting at, and maybe for the public, if nothing else, that there's not a hazard if you have kids walking up Cass Avenue. It's not an attractive nuisance for them.
They'll get muddy.
Walgreens requires that there be a fence around the basin as well at the top of slope from a liability standpoint.
Do you know what that, was that, I don't know if that fence was shown or what the material would be?
It proposed to be a chain link fence, so it's not a 6 foot high or, you know, with razor wire or anything. It's a 4 foot high chain link fence around the top of bank around the perimeter of the basin. And there's a one-man gate that would be locked, you know, for maintenance and so forth.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, John.
No, go ahead.
What the petitioner is referring to, you heard him mention the term BMPs. These are new requirements by DuPage County best management practices. We've kind of joked at the staff level that they're really not best management practices, they're best management requirements that the county is requiring. Makes the cost of development a little bit more expensive and tougher to design, but we think are very, if you can use the word green, much more green in terms of its benefits for the environment.
These are the types of plants you would see in that detention basin area. A variety of different, we're picking a floristic quality seed mix, and but you'll see these types of plants, and in the summertime they'll be blooming, but in the wintertime they'll be like everything else.
And then lastly, I just have a comment for the commission. Shannon mentioned some staff concerns about the pole sign plus the monument sign. And, the applicant's attorney mentioned, maybe this could be worked out depending on what the IDOT requirements are. Is the line of sight triangle or safe ingress egress going to be obstructed by a monument sign? When you're voting on this item, I guess an option to consider, one is maybe you have no problem with the pole sign, in which case don't worry about it. The other alternative, if you desire, would be to approve the pole sign or approve the signage variance with the stipulation that if IDOT would permit the ground sign, that you would require the applicant to install that in lieu of the pole sign. Up to you.
And that would be with item E.
I guess I'd would be D and E. Because
Just let me say, at this point, with regard to the signage, aside from the variable as it relates to IDOT, we're going to have to go back to Walgreen Corporate. So whatever you can do to give us that flexibility, we will need. We'd be happy to work with staff, but I don't want to get locked into the installation of a ground sign at this point. I'm not saying it won't happen, but I can't commit to it, and I don't want to be disingenuous when it comes to whatever action you're taking.
So I can't wave the minutes from the meeting up in the air and say,
Right,
the attorney said it.
exactly.
Anything further, John?
No.
Any additional comments by staff? Commissioners, questions or comments? Okay.
Well, I do have one question about
Yes.
the fence that'll be around the pond or the retention area. That'll be at the actual, right where it comes up to the level ground?
Yes.
Okay, so it'll be set back from anybody who's typically walking in the area.
Oh, yeah, from the sidewalk here.
Would you just, kind of flip it up?
From the sidewalk here on Cass, there's approximately 15 to 20 feet before this dark black line here is the fence.
Okay.
Before there's a fence, and you can see it's set back here approximately 8 feet from the property line, 5 feet from the back of curb, and over here it's 5 feet from the property line as well.
Okay, yeah, that was my only concern.
Okay. Anything further? All right, we have a complex set of...
No, I just wanted to make one comment before here. You made several references to working with staff. I don't mean to be solicitous in any way, but your staff is extraordinary in terms of their willingness to work with us. Obviously, they haven't accepted everything, as you hear by some of the exchanges. But in terms of the responsiveness, I just want to thank them publicly because they really made this project move in terms of progressing along.
Great, thank you. It's nice to hear that. All right. Beginning with a special use permit request, we have findings of fact for that first.
Criteria number 1, the proposed use at this location will not have any adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with such a special use, irrespective of its location within the zoning district. The applicant is proposing a dedicated drive-through lane for pharmacy pickups and drop-offs. Stacking is available for up to 6 vehicles, and the use of this drive-through pharmacy lane is expected to be light in comparison with fast food restaurants and banks. This proposed drive-through use is similar to or less obtrusive than other drive-through uses in the immediate area and does not pose any special or adverse effects beyond those typically associated with such a drive-through use.
Commissioners agreeing, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 2, the proposed use meets the special conditions of special condition number 2. The proposed drive-through is contained on the site and will have no impact on surrounding traffic conditions. Drive-through traffic circulates via a dedicated lane around the rear and side of the building and does not present a hazard to either vehicular or pedestrian traffic.
Commissioners agreeing with this, please raise your hand. We're unanimous once again. I will entertain a motion for item A, a special use permit request for a drive-through pharmacy window.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. Are there any comments or discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Pell.
Yes. I'll entertain a motion for item B, a plat of subdivision to consolidate the 3 parcels into 1 buildable lot.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Any comments or questions by commissioners? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
And Chairman Pill.
Votes yes. All right. Item C is a variance request, and for that, we'll have a reading of the findings of fact.
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. It is important for the success of applicant's business to maximize off-street parking and convenience for customers. Applicant is complying with the 10-foot front yard setback typical for the B2 General Business District, but is unable to comply with the supplemental setback along Ogden Avenue of 30 feet while maintaining sufficient customer parking. This parking layout is common for most Walgreens stores and is similar to the parking layout of other businesses in the immediate area.
If you agree with those comments, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The encroachment into the supplemental setback along Ogden Avenue is required to meet the minimum off-street parking requirements and to provide a convenience for its customers. Although the applicant complies with the 10-foot setback typically found in the B2 General Business District, it does not meet the supplemental setback requirement.
Commissioners agreeing, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The proposed parking layout is similar to existing parking layouts for other businesses in the immediate area, and granting this proposed variance will not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood.
Commissioners agreeing, please raise your hand. We're unanimous once again. These findings of facts are passed. I'll entertain a motion for item C, a zoning code variance request to permit parking in the supplemental front yard setback.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Fidesco, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Any comments or discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
And Chairman Pill.
Yes. Item D is another variance request and will require another reading of findings of fact. Fred?
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The applicant faces a hardship in that the proposed building is located upon a corner lot, necessitating the need for additional signage. Additionally, the applicant's business will be competing for customers' attention with other businesses and a large amount of signage in the immediate area. This additional signage is necessary to sufficiently market this Walgreens store and brand and to attract customers' attention, and the property cannot yield a reasonable return without this exposure generated from this signage.
Commissioners agreeing, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The applicant's situation is unique in that the proposed building is located on a corner lot in a densely developed commercial area.
Commissioners agreeing with this, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The proposed signage is aesthetically pleasing and consistent with other signs in the immediate area and will not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood.
Commissioners agreeing, please raise your hand. We're unanimous once again. I'll entertain a motion for item D, a zoning code variance request to allow more than 2 identification signs on a corner lot.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. Are there any comments or questions, discussion on this item? Attorney Zemanek, my question would be, do we want to not differentiate then between the pole and the monument sign at this particular point based on those comments, or would it have to be tied to DE or a separate motion?
Maybe the easiest way would be a separate motion at the end of the voting if you're so inclined.
Any other discussion? Roll, please.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Pill.
Yes. Item E is another variance request, and we'll have another reading of the findings of fact.
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. The applicant faces a hardship in that the proposed building is located upon a corner lot, necessitating the need for additional signage. Additionally, the applicant's business will be competing for customers' attention with other businesses and a large amount of signage in this immediate area. This additional signage is necessary to sufficiently market this Walgreens store and brand and to attract customers' attention. The property cannot yield a reasonable return without the exposure generated from this signage.
Commissioners agreeing with this, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The applicant's situation is unique in that the proposed building is located on a corner lot in a densely developed commercial area.
Commissioners agreeing with this, please raise your hand. We're unanimous once again.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The proposed signage is aesthetically pleasing and consistent with other signs in the immediate area and will not adversely affect the character of the neighborhood.
Commissioners agreeing with this, please raise your hand. We're unanimous once again. Findings of fact for item E are hereby passed. I'll entertain a motion for item E, a zoning code variance request to increase the maximum gross square footage of signage.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. Any comments or discussion on this item? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Pill.
Votes yes. Item F, I'm sorry to those of you in the audience, we do not have findings of fact on this one. I hate to shortchange you on that. I will entertain a motion for item F, site and landscaping plan review.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Fidesco, seconded by Commissioner Van Buren. Any comments or discussion on item F? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, Chairman Pill.
Votes yes. I'm not sure another motion is needed or another item because of the work that I did. I don't know if staff has a recommendation on this or any other commissioners.
At this time, Mr. Chairman, this information is certainly going to be made known to the village board, and they can include that or not include that as they see fit in their final voting.
The relationship has progressed where there's a good working relationship, and obviously the village board has the final authority on this, and I see no reason to tie anybody's hands at this particular point with something like that over a sign that none of us know what IDOT is going to ultimately rule on anyway.
And I think we, at the staff level, have a little bit more research to do before this item comes before the village board. We're certainly willing to provide as much as we can.
Great. Well, gentlemen, we thank you very much. This item has received our recommendation unanimously and will be passed on to the village board. Either Shannon or Fred will coordinate with you at which time you'll be presenting before the committee of the whole on an upcoming Thursday night. Thanks and best of luck.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. All righty. The one everybody's been waiting for. Here we go. Planning and zoning item 10-005, Thomas J. McCabe of Seton Engineering, with Westmont A Imports Incorporated regarding the properties located at 276 East Ogden Avenue and 600 Black Hawk Drive, Westmont, for the following. A special use permit request to operate an automobile dealership in the B2 General Business District. B, plat of subdivision to consolidate 3 parcels into 1 buildable lot. C, a zoning code variance request to permit parking in the required front yard setback. And D, a revised site landscaping plan approval. Good evening.
Good evening. We were here back in July, pardon me, to go over two portions of this project. This is the Audi dealership. At that time, we were going to put on some service bays in the back and then do a little bit of work in the front of the Audi store. At that time, we did not own the corner piece, which is just like the Laurel BMW. We've got a corner piece with an abandoned restaurant. So just in kind of future planning for the Audi dealership, we thought if we built out where we had in the past, we get stuck this corner parcel. So in the meantime, Laurel Audi has bought the corner piece. Is going to tear down the building, put parking in there for now, but now this gives us some flexibility in the future. If we want to expand further out with the store, we have that room. So in essence, it's the same proposal we had before you in July. The service bay building is still there. What we've done in the front, since we have a little more room now, is before that was a much smaller addition. Now it's going to be a bit larger. And then also a facelift also with the addition. And again, back when we came before you in July, there was also a facelift, kind of freshen up the front of the store. So the only difference is today, one, we've acquired the corner lot. We're consolidating now 3 lots instead of 2. And the addition in the front gets a little bigger, and the sprucing up is a little bit different.
And can you just address, while we're at it, just make sure we address your request for variance to permit parking in the required front yard setback, why you would need that and why it would not be a problem?
Yes, in the front yard, what we're doing right now is the Emmy's, the old Emmy's restaurant property that we purchased. We're lining up that parking with our existing parking. Now, the parking on the existing Audi is approximately 5 feet off the property line, and if we had to push that back to 30 feet, we couldn't get cars back and forth through the properties. So we're lining up the aisles to make circulation easier. Again, if we had to move it back, the new building would actually get in the way. We couldn't access the properties back and forth. So at this time, we're looking to, in this parking lot, we've got landscape islands. We've worked out the landscaping, or we just got comments. So we're working with Shannon on that. And at this time, the Emmy's lot, or the old Emmy's lot, is going to be for car parking.
Are you reducing the number of curb cuts on Ogden Avenue?
We are. There were 2 curb cuts on Ogden. We're reducing the curb cut closer to Black Hawk. So we're keeping the curb cut that's further west from the intersection.
Should it increase safety at the same time?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And the fact that it's a car dealership parking cars as opposed to an in-and-out restaurant will certainly reduce the traffic both onto Black Hawk and onto Ogden Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right,
I
thank
think
you. Yep, staff, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Again, some additional staff review comments were passed out this evening from our village landscape architect and planning engineer. The landscape comments just have a few points of clarification, a couple of material additions and substitutions. And then the engineering comments were again general. One of them is that when this goes before the board, a parking stall dimension waiver is going to be requested, but since this is going to be long-term storage type parking, we typically would allow a slightly smaller dimension space anyhow. They're proposing consolidated. There will be a total of about 237 parking spaces. And then a third part of the addition that I don't know if it was mentioned during the introduction was that they're putting in a small service reception area at the northwest corner of the building. I don't have any other comments.
This area here.
Right. Oh, I do have one more comment. I take that back. There's also, we've been working with the petitioners on a fire department connection relocation. So during our pre-application meetings, the fire department mentioned that, and I believe that that's being addressed for when they apply for their permits.
Great. Thank you. Fred, any comments?
Again, this is the second auto dealership expansion here, and some, as we emerge from some very difficult economic times, and I think staff has been pleased to work with these petitioners to help make their dealership more attractive to sell more cars.
Great, great. All righty. I will open up the public hearing to anyone in our audience. We have a couple of folks left. If you have something you'd like to come up and speak either for or against this would be the time to do so. No thanks. All right. We'll close the public hearing on this, and we'll begin with commissioner comments, and we are with Commissioner Fidesco.
Yeah, I really just want to thank you for putting a good proposal together as far as the additional change. But, as far as this building goes, it's going to open up the area now. It's going to be cars rather than the old restaurant there. And your building, the new spruce up, looks great. I liked it the last time, and I like this even better.
That's what we figured.
Yeah, well, I don't have any objections to any of your proposals, and good luck.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Buren.
Ditto.
Commissioner Thomas.
I'm glad you have the problem that you need the space. And I liked it before, and I like it better now. Take a look at the picture. It's a good, it looks good that it's in Westmont, the whole project. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would echo the same comments. I really have no questions at this time, and wish you the best of luck with the expansion.
Thank you. Without sounding like a broken record, we've been working in a lot of towns. I've been doing this for 30 years, and Shannon and Fred are really, your staff is probably one of the best staffs to work with. Very responsive. We don't always agree on everything, but we're very responsive, and we've been able to work things out.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate hearing that. Thank you. Attorney Zemnick, any questions? No. Right. Well, once again, we have multiple items here, and we'll begin with item A, which has a special use permit, requires a reading of the findings of fact. Fred, please.
Criteria number 1, the proposed use at this location will not have any adverse effects above and beyond those inherently associated with such a special use, irrespective of its location within the zoning district. This proposed auto dealership use is identical to the multiple automobile dealerships along Ogden Avenue in the immediate vicinity of this property. Nothing about this proposed use will pose any adverse or unique effects beyond those customarily associated with auto dealerships in the B2 General Business District.
Commissioners agreeing, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 2, the proposed use meets the special conditions of special condition number 2. The property contains sufficient means for ingress and egress and will be used primarily for storage of vehicle inventory. As a result, it will not generate significant vehicular or pedestrian traffic at this location.
Commissioners agreeing with this, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 3, the proposed use meets the special conditions of special condition number 4. No portion of the property is located within 500 feet of a residence district.
Commissioners agreeing with this, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 4, the proposed use meets the special conditions of special condition number 7. The applicant is providing sufficient screening and landscaping for vehicles awaiting service or customer pickup.
Commissioners agreeing with this, please raise your hand. We're unanimous. That finding of fact is passed. I will entertain a motion for item A, a special use permit request to operate an automobile dealership in the B2 General Business District.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Van Buren, seconded by Commissioner Thomas. Any comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Pill.
Votes yes. Item B, I will entertain a motion to approve a plat of subdivision to consolidate 3 parcels into 1 buildable lot.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner Fidesco. Any comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
And Chairman Pill?
Votes yes. Item C is a request for variance, and for that, we'll have a reading of the findings of fact by Fred, please.
Criteria number 1, the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulations in the district in which it is located. It is essential for the applicant as an auto dealership to maximize the amount of inventory on site and to maximize the curbside exposure of vehicles in order to remain competitive with the other dealerships along Ogden Avenue. The proposed variance is consistent with the development and use of other parcels along Ogden Avenue, and the applicant cannot yield a reasonable return without this variance.
Commissioners agreeing, please raise your hand. It's unanimous.
Criteria number 2, the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances. The applicant's hardship is unique in that, as an automobile dealership, it must maximize its inventory of vehicles on site and maximize the exposure of such vehicles from the curbside.
Commissioners agreeing, please raise your hand. We're unanimous.
Criteria number 3, the variation, if granted, will not alter the essential character of the locality. The proposed variance in parking is similar to other businesses along Ogden Avenue, and this proposed parking layout will not impact sight lines, access throughout the site, or alter the character of the neighborhood.
Commissioners agreeing, please raise your hand. We're unanimous once again. That finding of fact is passed. I will entertain a motion for item C, a zoning code variance request to permit parking in the required front yard setback.
Motion to approve item C.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Fidesco, seconded by Commissioner Van Buren. Any comments or questions on the motion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes, and Chairman Pill?
Votes yes. And last, but certainly not least, item D. I'll entertain a motion for item D, a revised site landscaping plan approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas, seconded by Commissioner Van Buren. Any comments or questions? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Van Buren votes yes. Commissioner Thomas?
Yes.
Commissioner Fidesco?
Yes.
And Chairman Pill?
Votes yes. All right. You have our recommendation for this.
Thank you.
And either Shannon or Fred will contact you and be in communication as to when you will go before the Village Board Committee, the whole meeting on an upcoming Thursday.
Okay, great,
Good
thank
luck
you.
and thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that concludes tonight's formal agenda. Is there any staff or commissioners who would like to bring up anything or discuss anything further?
I have a note. Periodically, it comes up when people come before us that their dealings with staff have been rewarding to both them and the village. The professionalism of the staff, although we're not being, the days of staff being overrun and something slipping by is pretty much past, hopefully. I know you can't guarantee everything, but we've been caught before. And I want you guys to know that I believe I speak for the commission and our appreciation and your hard work and your thoroughness and, again, professionalism, and I appreciate it. It makes our job a whole lot easier.
I would say the same for for Attorney Zemanek.
Okay. I agree.
Well, I think tonight's write-ups are indicative of that. They were professional and well done, easy to follow, and they brought all the questions into play, so there were very few questions left here tonight. Most of the things were addressed prior to this, which is how they should be. It shouldn't be a finding or a surprise here at this particular point, so thank you also for all the cooperation and hard work. And I also want to thank Attorney Zemanek, too, yes. We just don't do that enough.
Mr. Chairman, we found that generally in the development business, surprises are usually not good.
Yes, yes, I can see that, yes. All right, any other comments or questions?
I'd just like to point out for informational purposes and follow-up from last month that the RFP for the comprehensive plan will be discussed at tomorrow evening's Committee of the Whole.
Okay, thank you, Shannon.
That's at 7:30 for anyone that wants to tune in at home.
Great, Channel 6. All righty. If there's no further business to be brought forward, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Thomas and seconded by Commissioner Van Buren? Yes. Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is now adjourned.